When I was born, the doctors told my parents that they should probably amputate all 4 of my limbs because I wouldn't be able to use them, but I'm glad that they didn't. My name is Jennifer Kumiyama, and I am the oldest of 6 kids. My parents got married young. They got married actually because my mom was pregnant with me. And they also divorced about when I was 4. By that time I had 2 brothers. My dad remarried when I was 5 to a really awesome Filipino lady who I love very much, and they had 3 more children. Currently, I work for an elected official in Long Beach whose name is Councilwoman Lena Gonzalez, who represents the 1st District of Long Beach. Because of my job, I get to go to a lot of community meetings. So there's a lot of different parts and neighborhoods in Long Beach. Long Beach is 52 square miles, and we have a population about 500,000 people, which is bigger than a lot of other cities that you think would be bigger, like Chicago, Atlanta. Long Beach is a huge city. The literal Greek translation of arthrogryposis means curved or hooked joints. So all 4 of my limbs, on my arms and my legs, have limited range of motion, which means they don't move like everyone else's. My hips can only move a certain degree. Same with my elbows and my wrists and other joints in my body. Growing up, I think my parents were really worried because the rest of my siblings didn't have disabilities and I was the only one that did. So they would all play football and soccer and softball and things like that. But I was really into music and theater. They sent me to camp, an all abilities camp for kids like me. I loved it. I had a great childhood. What really solidified my passion and like the drive, I guess, for wanting to be a singer was watching The Little Mermaid in theaters and listening to Ariel sing with her forks and her treasures and all those things. And I was like, I want to be a princess underwater. And I think it just stuck with me. I remember taking trips to Disneyland and being like, oh my God, I want to work here one day. I wasn't sure in what capacity, but I knew I loved to sing, so.
Wish I could be part of that world.
I was in choir from middle school and up, and I just kept taking choir, and in high school I was in the theater program, so I did a lot of performing through there. I think I really got into performing and like producing my own like shows with friends when I was about in my late 20s.
You're so fucking special. I wish I was special. I'm
The Abilities Expo is a convention for people with all sorts of different needs and different levels of need. And they have all sorts of resources and materials that people can come and buy. Everything from adapted driving steering wheels for cars to adaptive equipment to climb rocks, different types of wheelchairs, things that adapt people's homes to make them more accessible for them, and things of that nature. It was at the Abilities Expo that I met my first Miss Wheelchair California. She was super pretty. She was in a wheelchair. She had short hair. And she was in this like red, white, and blue jumpsuit with a tiara and a sash. And I was like, I want to be like her. Clearly I was meant to be like a princess because they'll motivate me. I finally decided to compete for Miss Wheelchair California in 2009. And I was super scared because at that time I was in Aladdin at California Adventures, and I was singing there full time. And the thought of speaking in public really frightened me. But I knew that it was something that I had to do because the more visibility people with disabilities have is better for the community, right? So I signed up, and all of my friends supported me, and we raised money, and I traveled to Sacramento, and I got first runner-up, which is totally cool for me because I didn't have any public speaking or real solid advocacy history like under my belt. I decided to compete again the following year in 2010 for Miss Wheelchair California, and at that time there was like 9 other women that were amazing.
Miss Wheelchair California is Jennifer Kumiyama.
To be quite honest, when they said my name, I was a little bit shocked, just because I was surrounded by so many awesome women. You know, it was like picking a needle out of a haystack, I guess. You can't compare the two. It's like red apples and green apples. They're both the same, slightly different. I learned that Disney was auditioning for a new Broadway-style theme park show in a magazine called Backstage West. It's kind of like a classifieds for people in the industry, in the entertainment industry. So everything from like theater to TV to makeup to stage techs, all of that. And I was with a bunch of friends, and at the time I just moved to Long Beach, and I went to the audition with about 4 or 5 other friends. And I remember going in and looking around and seeing all these beautiful, tall, thin, and beautiful people. And of course, like most other times in my life, I was the only person in a wheelchair in the room. And I remember going in the room, and I had to start my song 3 times because I was so frightened. And I finally did the 3rd time, and I was like, okay, I'm done. So I left the room, all my friends were done auditioning, and I was like, there went that out the window. And 2 days later, they called me back to come back and audition for a bigger group of people in the room. The director, Francesca Zambello, came out from New York. So I auditioned for her and a couple of other executives, and I went and I sang again. I did my best, and then they called me back for the 3rd and final time, and they fitted me for a costume, which was a good sign. And then I literally waited for 3 months, and I thought for 3 months I just, you know, put that memory in the back of my head. But they called me, and I was in a coffee shop in Belmont Shore, and they offered me full time.
I need to live, gotta steal to eat, otherwise we'd get along.
I think my most memorable moment about being in Aladdin was the people and how very much like a family we were. They welcomed me with open arms. And oftentimes I would forget that I have a disability just because they never treated me that way. And I loved it. I made some of my dearest lifelong friends in that cast. And I had some of the best laughs, and, you know, and I think that's what life is really about. It's like friendship and connections. And I'm really grateful for my time there, because I feel like it really taught me about that. I think that in this political climate that we're experiencing, it's really important for all of us to be advocates for people that are like us, for people that are not like us, for people that are underserved and don't really have the strength to fight for themselves. The disability community, I feel like, is the last leg of the civil rights movement, in a sense that today, I think we're 27 years after the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act by George W. Bush. And I still go places in America that don't have accessible entrances to the front. I still have to enter places in the back of the kitchen, or I still have to make sure that where I'm going has an accessible bathroom. These are things that are not a privilege. Like, accessibility in the community is a right. I have a right to ride the bus with everybody else. I have a right to go through the same doors as everybody else, to sit at the same tables, to sit at the same bars, to shop at the same stores. Like, that's my right as a human being. Other human beings like myself with different abilities have the right to go to the movies and be able to read the closed captioning on the bottom and know what the movie's about. It's just baffling to me that in this day and age, with as much technology as there's cars that drive themselves that deliver their own pizza. Like, you know, as dumb as that sounds, but we still have people who are fighting for simple things like access to public places, access to jobs. People with disabilities don't get hired that much for jobs. I think a lot of people look at people with disabilities and think, well, what can that person do for me, or my company? And the reality is there are a lot of people with disabilities who are beyond qualified for a lot of the jobs that we have here in America. And it would be really awesome if people who hired people and gave people jobs looked at people with disabilities and said, I'm going to hire you for your abilities. We need to stop limiting people to what we see that they can't do and see what they can do. I'm good. I hope we get an A.
Yeah.
Every time Lou would come home, I'd be like, did we win yet? She's like, no! She'd be so mad at me.